This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome everyone to the first episode of the Mile High Insiders. I am your host today, Nick Kendell. Along with me for the first time, Luke Patterson. Luke, how are you doing?
I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped to be talking Broncos football on a Saturday night with Broncos country. Best fan base in the NFL, most educated fan base in the NFL. And let's get it going, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, so obviously this is our first show together. We had a little bit of debate back and forth with some football names. Inside zone was one that was discussed. Obviously, that's going to be a type of offense or a type of run design that Pat Shurmur is going to bring a lot. And Luke was talking a lot of the Mile High Pigskin, but we ended up coming on a Mile High Insider. So really excited about that and excited to have another chance to talk football with you. Obviously, some of you guys were with us when we talked football during the NFL draft. Luke and I went back and forth a little. I think our biggest, I wouldn't call it anything personal, but our linebacker opinions differed a little bit in that regard. So hopefully we'll definitely see some more of that coming forward. That out. Eventually, we definitely will. But guys, make sure you find us on Twitter. Follow Luke Patterson at Luke Patterson LP. Obviously, you can see it there. And myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Subscribe to our show wherever you listen to these shows and leave us a rating because, we like to read those. We like to get the feedback. Don't miss out on any of our great offseason content at milehighhuddle.com, on the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And also, this show is powered by Overtime Media. So let's get it going today. Our first topic of discussion is going to be Matt Russell. Obviously, a shake-up recently with the Denver Broncos. Nothing too crazy, but Matt Russell slowly but surely rising his way up in the Denver Broncos organization. You kind of saw it leading up to the draft. They're putting him in front of the media more and more. And so Matt Russell potentially being groomed for general manager, that kind of seems to be the consensus. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously there's a post-Elway era coming up, but we don't like to really think about it. Although some people, there's some Elway haters out there, but there's a post-Elway era coming up. And right now it seems like if things stay the course, it will be Matt Russell.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, Nick. When you hear the news break, I think 72 hours ago that he would become the VP of player personnel. It really wasn't a shocker. He's right underneath John. Him and John have a very, very close relationship. When you're out there at training camp and I'm looking at all these players, I'm also looking at John Elway standing right next to his right-hand man, Matt Russell. Now, Matt Russell's been with the Broncos for 12 years. Him and John Elway have been working together for 8 years. Matt Russell, he's done something about the NFL, working in the NFL for over 20 years now. So I think this is a move we could all see coming. I don't know if he's being groomed per se. I think he's being tested right now because one thing that we have not seen with Matt Russell is a lot of public appearances. We haven't heard a lot from Matt other than the typical scouting cliches of trying to get to the draft without revealing your hand. So I think Broncos country should look forward to getting to know Matt Russell, former CU Buff.
Yeah, and I definitely know that there may be, wouldn't call it homerism, but he's definitely pulled for a few buffs here or there. I believe it was Juwan Winfrey was a Matt Russell pick is what it sounded like. But we have a tweet here from Doc Bear, who's been with Mile High Huddle for years. He was over with It's All Over Fat Man before that. Really great follow on Twitter. But he said, tweeted out, with Matt Russell working in tandem alongside with Elway, the Broncos have posted the 7th most overall wins in the entire NFL, bringing home 5 AFC West crowns, 2 AFC titles, and 1 Super Bowl win. Now, obviously, you can't talk about all that success without talking about a guy like Peyton Manning having a large hand in the pot in regards to that success. But, Matt Russell has been pretty good, and I will say that over the past 3 seasons specifically, since Matt Russell has taken a bigger role in the scouting department, the Broncos drafts have gotten better. So, I guess the question really comes down to is how comfortable are you with Matt Russell becoming the general manager? Is that something you see right now? Let's say Elway walked away next year and Matt Russell was the guy. Where would you be at from a 1 to 10 on how good you feel about that?
I'd feel better than most, I think, in terms of him being kind of a rookie guy thrown into this position. He knows football. We know that. But learning the business of football is something that John Elway is trying to teach him right now. I don't know what John's going to do. It's all depending on John, right? Does John want to become an owner and try to throw his hat in the ring and leave the team for X amount of time? Does he want to try to work his way up with the Broncos and put something together with the Bolin children? Nobody really knows, but yeah, of course I like Matt Russell, CU Buff. Everybody in Broncos country loves the homegrown talent. Now, I know he spent some time with the Patriots and spent some time who else with the Eagles, I think it was. But right now, I think John Elway, like you said, John Elway and Matt Russell are the third most tenured brass, sitting behind the Patriots and the Cowboys. So they're trying to get consistency right now. I think bringing Matt Russell up, especially during this time, it's pivotal. It's absolutely pivotal. There should be no reason why Matt Russell can't be on these Zoom calls right now, why he can't start to introduce himself to Broncos country.
Yeah, and a lot of it's going to depend on the Broncos' success over these next couple seasons. Obviously, Elway's contract is going to run out here. The ownership question is a huge cloud over all of this, which makes this all, it could totally fall apart. You could have an owner come in and they want to be Jerry Jones, and that should scare Broncos country, but also getting an owner with some deep pockets also should help them a little bit. So it's, a little give and take. But right now, It does seem like Matt Russell is somebody that he's being groomed for it. They're going to continue to put him out in front of the media, and he's going to have to fend for himself. And so far, I think he's done a pretty good job. I'm excited about it with trepidation.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. But I would say, if let's say John did decide to leave after 2020, who else are they looking at? Who else would be coming in as another candidate for GM? Because I don't have a lot of names off the top of my head. I would immediately think the Broncos do like to do business in-house. And I'm telling you, for anybody that doesn't believe me, John Elway and Matt Russell, they're good friends. This goes beyond the relationship of football. This is a very loyal friendship with John Elway and Matt Russell, something that's almost Gary Kubiak, John Elway-esque. And hopefully those guys get things back together one day. I hope they will. I think ultimately the whole circle's always going to come back around. But yeah, Matt Russell, he'll get there. It's just not time.
So you do point out something that I want to get to as well. Good comment here coming from Bronx legend. I would be comfortable with Russell when and if Elway hangs it up. He's paid his dues by now. And that's something that, with becoming the VP here, he's going to have more responsibility, more blame if things don't go well. So it's just a step in that direction. You did point out there, though, with Elway and the Broncos and Elway and Russell being friends, do you have any worries about cronyism? Obviously, for the throwing out big words here, is the friend the best guy to hire as somebody afterwards, or are you too close to the situation? Can it kind of blind you to some warts?
Man, that's a tough question because you've seen so many successes with it here in Denver and not a lot of failures, but you've seen failures in other places where it's just not working. And I love to make fun of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not going to stop now, so I'm going to look at the Jones family. And some would argue it's a very successful franchise because of the revenue that it generates. The Dallas Cowboys, billion-dollar business, company, franchise, what have you. But what have they accomplished lately by doing business in-house? That's something I don't know that fits the mold with every franchise. I think you have to have a historic tradition to ultimately get that going. Something a la Gary Kubiak coming back in 2015, winning Super Bowl 50. You start to see other Broncos coming back. DeMarcus Ware had come back and did a pass rushing consultant thing with the Broncos in training camp, right? So I think it depends on the franchise, but ultimately, yeah, Matt Russell, he's a shoo-in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, the ownership situation, that could change things dramatically. There are some murmurs that maybe somebody, Peyton Manning with a big financial group, could make a bid. The NFL could force the Bolin family to sell it. I'm hoping years from now we have a Netflix series about this whole Bolin family drama, the secret child and all of that. I would be all about that. It's just the crazy stuff going on there. But good question coming in here from friend of the podcast, James Campbell. James from across the pond there. Hope you're doing well. New pod. Thanks, James. Let's go. How much of a game changer could Mahomes' proposed cap percentage structure be? And what would be its deeper implication for the Broncos NFL moving forward? Hoping Floyd Little has a full recovery, hashtag 44 strong, and want to emphasize that last sentence there. Obviously, Floyd Little with the aggressive but treatable cancer. So hopefully, so much negativity in the world right now. But that's hopefully something that we can hear some good news about sooner than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, James. That's very generous thoughts and prayers going out to Floyd Little and his family as he fights a courageous fight. But what would that look like with Patrick Mahomes and this new cap and everything he's going to be setting in terms for the Broncos? Well, it's looking good for the Broncos. Why? Because Drew Lock's not a first-round draft pick. That's one of the biggest reasons I think people are excited about Drew Lock. You got him almost at a bargain. Now, you ultimately had to trade up for him, but he fell. I had him as a top 10 player. I loved him since Mizzou. I was on lock day one, man. For better or worse, I'm in. But the Broncos didn't have to go the Paxton Lynch route. They didn't have to give up a surplus of draft capital to go get a first-round quarterback. And that's ultimately going to pay some dividends when it comes to talking money.
Yeah, the big thing is when I look at quarterbacks, obviously Patrick Mahomes, for my money, unfortunately, is already the best quarterback in football. I mean, you could have an argument between him or Russell Wilson if you're talking about one single season and going the next like 3 seasons. Maybe for one game you could argue like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but Mahomes should be right there. The good thing is that he is going to get paid soon, in the kind of the pattern right now you see in the NFL with these contract structures, especially for quarterbacks, is when they first sign those giant contracts, there's a little bit of a lag time where they're not as competitive right away because they're paying so much money for that quarterback. It's towards the end of that deal later on when they start to become a little bit more of a bargain. It's just the nature of the salary cap, who is the highest paid quarterback right now? I couldn't even tell you, but like when Matt Ryan was paid, he became the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL, but he was the next great quarterback, to get paid. So then about a few years down the line, once that contract is all of a sudden the 6th or 7th highest paid quarterback contract, the cap numbers have swelled. That's when you kind of see that second contract and another window of contention open with a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And is it Kirk Cousins right now? I think I want to hang my hat on him. Part of me wants to say Dak, but you know what? That deal ain't done. And I would ask you this, Nick, who's going to get the deal done first? Is it going to be Dak? Are they going to throw that tag down and hope things work out? Or is Pat going to get signed before we even know what's going on with the Cowboys franchise quarterback?
You know what? That's a really good question. I think you'll probably see Dak paid first because both of these teams actually do have a good amount of money. But the Chiefs right now, they are set up where they can roll over a little bit of money. They're not in the best cap situation overall, and they have a window next season. They didn't lose many people from last season to this year. So paying Mahomes now, that's going to be a bigger hit on the cap. I think it could be a little bit detrimental to some flexibility for them this season. So unfortunately for the Chiefs, they maybe won the Super Bowl a year early. A lot of times you'll see a Super Bowl team be dismantled right after the Super Bowl run, and that's not the case for this Chiefs team. But I'm thinking more so 2021, 2022 is when you really have a chance to see this Chiefs team be dismantled, and a big reason because Patrick Mahomes is going to get paid. So looking actually right now, the average per year for the highest contracts, Russell Wilson right now, $35 million a year. Big Ben, $34 million a year. Jared Goff, $33.5. Aaron Rodgers, $33.5. And then Kirk Cousins coming in at 33. So that's some big money going on there. And obviously, gosh, it should have been an NFL quarterback if only it was that easy. But right. I think that will definitely be a big thing for the Broncos, and something that I'll say many times probably this offseason and going into next year. The Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC. You could argue the Ravens, but the Chiefs have the best quarterback in football, probably the best player in football when you value quarterbacks as well, having more weight. But 2020 for the Broncos, if they're not better than the Chiefs, that's unfortunate, frustrating. If they get swept by the Chiefs again, unfortunate. But I really think with Patrick Mahomes getting paid, like we talked about, and how this Broncos team is structured, 2020 should be a good year, but the window opens up ever so slightly, 2021 and 2022 with Drew Lock and how this team is built. That's when the Broncos need to maximize.
I agree. Well, and here's something I also like to daydream about, because we know Drew Lock, he likes to talk a little smack, right? He likes to be fiery. He's got that chip on his shoulder, likes to hang loose, play loose, have fun. Well, what does Drew Lock think of this Patrick Mahomes talk? He sees the Super Bowl champ. He knows he's got the king, the crown, the belt, all of this. In his home city, Drew Lock has to watch this and listen to this throughout this whole quarantine. You got to know that's firing up the kid. How do you think Drew Lock's going to show up against Kansas City Chiefs' own Patrick Mahomes twice a year?
Well, I was at the Broncos-Kansas City game last year when I was about covered neck deep in snow. So that was one where obviously was not the best game, but Lock kept coming back. So he's dealt with some adversity. Playing at Mizzou in the SEC, he's dealt with some adversity. He's gone up against a lot of good teams. And granted, he didn't lead Missouri to greatness, but Patrick Mahomes didn't lead Texas Tech to greatness in the Big 12. So I'm not going to hold that against him, but it'll be an interesting dynamic for sure. I hope Broncos country is realistic enough that Patrick Mahomes isn't the measuring stick for Drew Lock, because if Drew Lock isn't ever better than Patrick Mahomes, you know what? That's unfortunate, but Patrick Mahomes is really freaking good. If Drew Lock can even just be a Matt Stafford level quarterback, the structure of the Broncos, the talent around him, you'd hope that would open up a window and give the Broncos some contention, because, Andy Reid has got that ring now. He's probably going to be leaving. Can they keep Chris Jones? Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, already over 30. So this is some stuff that the Chiefs team is going to change, and the dynamic of that roster is going to change completely. Patrick Mahomes is still going to be there for another decade. That makes it hard, but if the Broncos can even just get a good franchise-level quarterback play, which easier said than done, from Drew Lock, then this could really blossom into a really great rivalry. And arguably, I mean, I think personally, if you're going to ask me, the last decade, the best quarterback rivalry, Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. Peyton Manning, for my money, I'm probably biased. The better quarterback, Tom Brady was on the better team. The guy that had the most success was the guy on the better team. So That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And you know what? You heard it first here on the first episode ever of Mile High Insiders with Luke Patterson, Nick Kendell. Nick Kendell is officially comparing Drew Lock to Matthew Stafford. So I want to just point that out there. I'm going to throw some shade because, dude, I think the measuring stick is Pat Mahomes. You know why? Oh. How are we going to get past that AFC West, man?
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. Like, yeah, they're the champs, and I'm not saying Drew Lock needs to be Patrick Mahomes, but I think he will forever be graded against Patrick Mahomes because they're in the same division. And regardless of a team's success, when you start to look at quarterbacks and you start to think of quarterbacks that have had some rivalries, and I look at Phillip Rivers leaving the Los Angeles Chargers, and, you know, I don't know why the guy still continues to have football. I know he's got like 30 kids right now, but that's a lot to support. So maybe that's it. But, you know, at the end of the day, I look at these cats, and who wants to be the number one dog in the AFC West? Drew Lock. Who is the number one dog in the AFC West? Pat Mahomes. So I think they are going to be tied together. I do agree with you that I don't think it's necessarily fair, but for me, it's all about winning. Yeah. You know, I hate to quote Al Davis, just win, baby. But you know what, Broncos country? It's time to dethrone these Chiefs. Now, I'm not saying the Broncos are going to do it this year in 2020, but I think they're going to make significant strides to get there.
Yeah, and even just one win against the Chiefs because they haven't won since week 2, 2015, when Jamal Charles fumbled it and Bradley Roby took it to the end zone. Sure. But that was I don't need Drew Lock to be better than Patrick Mahomes, but I need the Broncos to be better than the Chiefs. And that's what it's all about in the end. So we got some chats obviously coming in here. Nad Ludlow, always coming in with a Carl Mecklenburg profile pick. # Nick's Beer Fund. I always got a cheers to that one. So
there you go. Thank you, Nad. Appreciate you. Love the Mecklenburg jersey. Very first jersey my mom ever got from my grandfather was a Carl Mecklenburg jersey, and was just talking to her about that the other day, man. Very special. Whenever I see that number, I love it.
Also, Terry Randall coming in with # Nick's Beer Fund. That's a tradition in the Building the Broncos podcast, and obviously got a little bit of bleed over here, so interesting. And also we got the Use the Force Luke. Ooh, I like that one. Got some.
Ooh,
I don't know.
Terry, I love it.
Are you a big Star Wars guy?
I am a huge Star Wars guy. In fact, I am one of those Star Wars guys that loves the old Star Wars so much that I hate the new ones. As soon as Disney took over Star Wars, I knew it was going to be awful, and I've got a 6-year-old little girl. She loves the new Disney movies, but nah, man, I got to go old school Star Wars, old school everything for me right now, because this Disney stuff, the Clone Wars, all this cartoons, I don't need that.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Dude, what did you think of The Mandalorian?
I love The Mandalorian. Absolutely love The Mandalorian. Carl Weathers is one of my favorite actors of all time. I go back to the cheesy Apollo Creed days in Rocky, right? And then you start looking at Predator and some of that stuff. So absolutely love Star Wars. I appreciate that, Terry. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. Also, # Nick's Beer Fund. Here's a good question here from YouTube. Nick Henson. Does the promotion of Russell have Brittany Bolin written all over it? And I think it does. This is... Right now, this contingency plan, I would say, most likely Brittany Bolin as the owner for the Denver Broncos once the leadership council kind of decides that. She's not ready right now, but years down the line, granted, the team could still be sold. There's a lot to play out here. It's going to be its own drama. Again, tune in. It's going to be crazy. But I do think that if Brittany Bolin ends up the owner of the team, or partial owner, majority owner, whatever you want to call it, that's probably good news for Russell. However, if it's somebody else coming in, open season.
Yeah, I certainly, Nick, that's a great question. And I see the question and I understand where you're going with it. However, Brittany Bolin has no influence over this move at all. I don't think she was even conferred. She's kind of in a position right now. Nick, you would know maybe a little better than me. Nikki Javala does one of the best jobs for The Athletic, recording the ownership situation. And right now, Brittany and Beth seem to be the main contenders. I could tell you when I was out there at training camp last year, Brittany Bolin was a very big presence during Alzheimer's Day, specifically with it being a really hard year with the death of Mr. Bolin last season and Broncos country losing a really great man. But it looks like Brittany is certainly the front runner, I would say right now. And that would be good news for Matt Russell, because the Broncos, they like things to stay in-house. And that would specifically be staying with a Bolin to own the Broncos and then keeping someone that John trusted and feels that he's capable and ready to lead this team.
Yeah, I think a little bit of contention on that. I do think that Russell, just because it is more of a status quo move, that would be Brittany Bolin staying in charge so that the trust wanting to go with Brittany. Russell's still a part of this overall stability going on, where if they went with another ownership, who the heck knows what's going to happen? That throws a complete different wrench in it. The owner obviously is going to want to get his own guy in there, and that could leave Matt Russell going who knows where. So I definitely think that just in regards to stability, that would make the most sense. So
yeah, and that's just it. And by no means, I don't want Broncos country to think that Matt Russell is only significant to the Broncos. He's got 20 years in the NFL, folks.
Yeah.
He was with the New England Patriots. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then the Broncos scooped him up. So Matt Russell is extremely well respected in the scouting community. I see him on these all-star road games down at the Shrine game and everything else like that, scouting personnel, everything. Matt Russell's there. He's the big cheese, man. And Matt knows talent and he knows football. I'm really excited to see and get to know him almost a little bit on a personable level.
For sure, yeah. Send me some Snapchats, like from behind him, bunny ears or something. So Yanis coming in here. Hey, guys, congrats on the new pod. Thank you so much. I hope Nick will continue to drink beer on air. Hey, if you guys hashtag Nick Beer Fun, I'm a man of the people, so twist my arm a little. Do you think if Elway passes the baton to Russell after 21, he will keep Fangio long-term if the team's winning games, or will he try to bring in his coach? Well, I think the easiest thing to answer there is Vic Fangio is obviously not the youngest guy, but he's finally getting his chance at the head coach. So as long as the Broncos are winning, I see no reason to switch that up and, I guess shake the card a little bit. If they're winning, you probably keep the old coach in charge.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And you know what, Vic Fangio? Yes, he's old school. We've seen the spaghetti and meatballs video and all that stuff. He's a little grouchy, but you know what? Players love him. And he finds a way to use his personality to reach the youth talent, whether that's Philip Lindsay and Bradley Chubb, each driving with him to go up to a CU basketball game before this whole mess. Things like that. Vic Fangio knows how to get to players. But I would also say this. Vic Fangio, he's a big supporter in analytics. And that's something that is very new school and new age in the NFL. And with regards to Matt Russell being promoted to VP of player personnel, there were other moves. Now, I'm not as familiar with some of the people, but there were other moves basically suggesting the Broncos are prioritizing analytics. And that's all Vic Fangio. That's coming from the top down. So not only do I think Vic Fangio would be very comfortable with Matt Russell, but I think Matt Russell would feel comfortable having a head coach he already knows. But I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there. I know that Matt Russell got a promotion, so everybody's already thinking, John's out the door. John's not out the door. No. John is hardly out the door. John is building a super offense to contend with this Kansas City Chiefs team. And I know the Raiders are coming. I know the Chargers are kind of an afterthought, but we're coming for the Chiefs. That's what John is building this team to do. So let's not write old number 7 off just yet, because I think he's got a few more tricks up his sleeve.
And, he's super competitive. He's not going to leave this team unless, A, he feels like he's left him in a good position, or B, he's run off because things have gone poorly. And I don't think that's going to happen. He's just too competitive. And obviously he doesn't want to spoil his legacy. John Elway is Denver. He's the Duke of Denver for a reason. So there's still a little bit of time left. When does this contract end? Is it 2021?
2021, I believe. Yeah. And, I think there's something to be said for his relationship with Mr. Bolin and how much John and Mr. Bolin, I think, loved each other. They considered each other family. I don't think they always agreed, but family never always agrees, right? So it's one of those things where, yes, he wants to leave the Broncos in a good place, because I think that's something that's very important for him, protecting his friend and mentor's legacy and Mr. Pat Bolin.
Yeah, I agree. And we have some comments here, some other options here. Bill1293 on YouTube comes in very often. Bill, good to see you. Lewis Riddick, I see a couple comments on Lewis Riddick. I think Lewis Riddick will get a shot at some point. Very intelligent, does a great job for ESPN. Maybe not Denver, but I would love to see him get an interview. A lot of times he speaks, and I listen, and I agree. He was one of those people that was very much about the speed for the Broncos offense. So anybody who can, help me in my own echo chamber and give me some confirmation bias for my thoughts, I'm 2 thumbs up,
Yeah, no, Lewis is very well respected, man. Like you said, anytime Lewis is talking, I'm listening. Absolutely. The guy knows football, that's for sure.
Yep, and he's articulate. Being a GM isn't just about being able to do football. You got to wear a lot of different hats. So, and speaking of wearing a lot of different hats here, like Peyton Manning, when he was on the Greens just this past week, give us Peyton. I would love Peyton Manning as the general manager. I think Peyton and John probably could not coexist, unfortunately, in that kind of realm. As a player-owner or player-GM relationship, it's a little different, but I think both in a front office thing. I don't think Peyton comes in unless John has ridden off into the sunset, so to speak. And I think it's Ryan Koenigsberg who's talked a little bit about Peyton, and he said that Peyton has higher aspirations. So maybe see Peyton as a little bit more of a figurehead for an ownership situation.
Yeah, that's hard to say. I don't think Peyton knows what he wants to do just yet. Yeah. Peyton is one of those folks that loves to be prepared for anything and everything. And sometimes I don't think he's always knowing what the end goal is going to be, but he's putting pieces together and he's starting to figure out the business of football. I know it's quick to think the sheriff's going to come in here and save everything, but I just don't know. I mean, with the way the trust and things are right now and the state of the world at the current moment, I think things are going to stay put. I think look forward to John Elway being here in the next couple of years, and then we're going to reevaluate things. Because like you said, Nick, John Elway, everybody's watching the Michael Jordan documentaries, and I love them. Trust me. But competitive-wise, John Elway's right there with Michael Jordan. And, the guy's going to compete in anything, and I do not think that John Elway would ever leave this franchise high and dry. It's something that is very important to him to get back to winning and being the best.
I think my favorite story about John Elway's competitiveness, I know it's kind of a funny anecdote, but he'd have a bunch of the people over when he was a player to play pool. And one time he lost a game of pool and he sold that table and got a new one because God damn it, he's not going to have a losing table in his basement.
Ooh, man, yeah, no, that's wood. That sounds like wood, because John Elway. But I played against Jack. So John coached Jack when I was playing at Mullen, and Jack was playing at Cherry Creek. So got to see him what he looked like as a coach for a couple years there, and he competitive as a high school football coach. So every aspect of John's life, he is extremely competitive, and I think you're seeing that with some of these free agent moves, trades, and the recent NFL draft.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that's a good one. Here's one. Kenneth Booker always commenting. Thank you very much. Like that mask there coming in from YouTube. I was watching an old school game. Hey, it's quarantine life right now, so that's kind of fun to do. I've been watching some old school games too, and they lined up Neil Smith and Derek Thomas on the same side on a couple of plays. 1 and 2 were sacks. Why don't teams do that more often? I think you do see that very often, but the issue is when you do that, you kind of, with body types, let's say if you put Bradley Chubb and Von Miller on the same side, one of those guys is going to be out of position. Just naturally, one of those guys, are you lining up Von Miller over the B gap? Is he going to get double teamed against a tackle and a guard? If that's the case, if it's 1st and 10, then run right at him. Von Miller is great, but if you have 2 300-pound offensive linemen going right at him, that's not where he's best. So I think in some packages, especially, you can get a little bit more exotic, but to do it too often, I think you just make yourself a little bit more vulnerable. You got to be able to balance and be on defense, be able to defend multiple things that the offense can do. But if you're in a position where you can attack, you can do things more nuanced, such as lining up 2 kind of similar body types.
I completely agree. And Kenneth, that's a really good question, and that's a good observation. And Neil Smith and Derek Thomas, man, 2 of the best to ever do it. And when Neil Smith came over here to the Broncos, that pretty much sealed the deal and helped 1997. I know John Elway was huge in getting Neil Smith here, and big Alfred Williams, love the big man, getting Neil Smith over here. But I would also challenge people to look at current pass rushers and the trends that we're seeing. How many Von Millers have we seen since his draft? They've come and gone. Shane Ray, that didn't quite work out. The leaner, freakish, bend Gumby style of Von Miller, it's just not popular. You're seeing a lot more pass rushers like Khalil Mack, Bradley Chubb, where it's the combination of speed and power. And Von Miller, he's a very technical player. I mean, he's karate chopping guys with his hands. He's doing things that nobody has ever seen. I'm hoping that Von can get back to it, but you start to see different trends in the NFL as the game starts to evolutionize. It's going to more passing concepts. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs and how many teams are trying to replicate that spread offense. How many teams are trying to find Tyreek Hill? Well, it's the same on defense. Who's the best pass rusher in the league right now? I consider it to be Aaron Donald. So every year, teams are looking for interior defensive linemen that's going to fit the mold of that best player. Now, Von Miller, I'm not sure he's a throwback. I think he's his own category, but you're certainly seeing a different style of pass rusher come into the NFL, especially with the Bosa brothers.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting evolution going on in football where you're seeing more guys you're looking for more coverage players and coverage dictating more of the pass rush thing, where especially in college football, you're seeing these 3-3-5 defenses. The Patriots have actually started to use it, where you have guys that they're not really the most nuanced pass rushers, but they're really good at pushing the pocket and containing the pocket. So you're the 3-3-5. I mean, you're obviously not rushing as many guys. So the big thing is just to slowly get in there, the Indiana Jones wall closing kind of thing. Granted, you need to get there at some point, but you need to make the quarterback, not be able, if you get the quarterback in a one-on-one situation, they'll pick you apart. So you want to have leverage on the back end, not get the big play up. So again, the smaller pass rushers, Von Miller's unique. He's a unicorn. There's not many guys like him with that freakish bend and the get off. That's one thing that I think nobody in the NFL, even now, has the get off of Von Miller. Maybe Myles Garrett, but that's about it. So it depends on the pass rusher, obviously, but I think in the NFL right now, even though it is becoming more of a passing league, you're looking for a little bit more guys who can push the pocket with some power, some length, slowly but surely get it in there. And if you have a freak like Von Miller, obviously you can get him there. But I feel like a lot of times in this past draft, a guy from Michigan who's escaping me right now, he was a second-round pick. Anyway, he was really good at the Senior Bowl this year, one of the better pass rushers. But you're seeing those guys kind of turn into a hybrid position where it's not the pure edge rusher. It's more of an off-ball edge rusher kind of thing, and they ask them to do multiple things. So the versatility on the defense, I mean, the game's changing. Obviously, it's always changing. Arms race on offense and defense, but I don't think you're going to see guys exactly like Von Miller, but there are guys that have Von Miller's get off and bend. So kind of a hard comparison. It's a unicorn.
Yep. I completely agree, man. Good question, Kenneth. I love it.
Yeah. That's when it's best. I love getting down to the nitty gritty of why things work and the way the football teams are looking for certain types of players that can fit these things. Pabby is Wait, local Iowan here. Shout out to Iowa. Got my Iowa beer shirt on. Welcome to the podcast, Luke. We're excited to have you, and Nick. Congratulations. Love the MHH family. Go Broncos. Pabby is as Chad would say, she'd go up on the Mount Rushmore, obviously coming in very often. So really do appreciate her coming in. Go Pabby. Obviously Terry Randall. Hi everyone. And thank you. She's a legend.
Thank you, Pabby. Really appreciate you tuning in and for all the support and joining us here on Saturday night as we talk Broncos with you here on Mile High Insiders, and I am pumped. History in the making, first episode. We've got a huge chat going. Can't thank you guys enough. And here's a question I want to get at from Mile High Beauty. Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback on a bad team, but I don't want Drew Lock to be Pat Mahomes. I want Drew Lock to be Drew Lock. And, yeah, I think you see Mile High Beauty sticking up for you a little bit there, Nick, as I tried to wedge drive a little bit you into the corner with that comparison, Drew Lock to Matt Stafford. And you know what, Mile High Beauty, I would agree with you. I think Matt Stafford, Detroit's a hot mess. It's been a hot mess for years.
They made Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson retire early, barely to be heard from again. I mean, that's just sad. I'm sorry. They got the beautiful Honolulu Blues. But being stuck behind the Vikings and the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, good defenses, the Bears, Detroit, without Matt Stafford, they would have been the Browns recently. Matt Stafford's the only thing keeping them afloat. Very underrated, in my opinion.
Yep, completely agree. I think it's a shame because Matt Stafford out of Georgia, right? He's got a huge arm and he's got a great mind for the game. When you watch his eyes and you watch his film and you start to chart Matt Stafford's plays, you can tell the guy understands football, but he's always banged up. He's always hurt. He's always just kind of getting the heck knocked out of him. And Detroit Lions, man, I feel for you guys because here in Broncos country, I thought we had it bad the past couple seasons, but y'all have it bad all year round, every year. So that's why we are riding with you guys, Broncos country, here on Mile High Insiders with Nick Kendell and Luke Patterson. Thank you guys for joining us here on Saturday night.
Yeah, thank you. That's James Campbell again, coming in from across the pond. Really hope Drew Lock is just competent as a quarterback to allow the Broncos to be competitive. If he can be like Matt Stafford, but on a good team, I'd take that. I think Matt Stafford, again, I think he's been one of the most underrated quarterbacks this past decade. Granted, he's not on his way to Canton, so he's not that level of quarterback. But you put him on, let's say you put Matt Stafford on the 2016 Broncos with that defense and still a solid skeleton of the offense still there. Not explosive as one this season, but still some stuff to do there. DT was still healthy, Emmanuel Sanders. I think that's a Super Bowl team. So if you can, the question needs to be, can I win a Super Bowl with this quarterback? With Matt Stafford, I think I can. With Drew Lock, still wait and see. But if he can be, hypothetically, Matt Stafford, maybe better out of the pocket, a little bit more playmaking ability, which I think Matt Stafford has a better arm, but I think Drew Lock's a little bit more better out of structure. He's a little bit more accuracy out of, a little more playmaking. So
yeah, well, and I would challenge people too, don't only look at the quarterback position as, can I build a Super Bowl team around this quarterback? It's how about, can I get to the playoffs with this quarterback? Let's start simple. Can we get to 500? Can this quarterback lead this team in training camp? Can they lead them in OTAs? OTAs and minicamp, that's not happening right now. So Drew Lock was taking huge leaps and bounds. Vic Fangio went out of his way to praise Drew Lock, and he doesn't like to do that with a lot of guys, saying that he used those 12 weeks off last year with that dislocated thumb to really take advantage of preparation and to really take advantage of understanding football. So I think in the grand scheme of things, John Elway looked at Drew Lock this offseason and said, you know what, I'm going to build you a playoff team, and I'm going to get us there. We know the Broncos don't necessarily have to win the AFC West to get in the playoffs, right, Nick? I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs can go ahead and take the AFC West. If the Broncos are scratching and clawing at the door right there, they could very well be in the playoffs themselves.
Well, I'm not ready to say the Chiefs can take the AFC West. Hopefully we see a little bit of a fight. But if they do take it, there's three wild card spots now, excuse me. So that's obviously opens up the door for the Broncos. Granted, this year's schedule is going to be difficult, and perhaps no team will be as impacted given the state of the world right now and the irregularity of the offseason as the Broncos with how young they are, new coordinator, a bunch of new weapons, Drew Lock's first year as a starter, blah, blah, blah. We'll probably say that 100 times over this offseason. Every time we talk about that, take a drink. That's the new game. But I think that is an interesting point for sure. Joseph Carson coming in here, Joseph Carson Jr., over on YouTube. Thank you very much. Welcome to the live pods, Luke. See, Luke, you're getting way more of a positive reception than I ever got. But going back to Matt Russell thing, where are these notions coming from that Elway won't stick around or be extended? Well, I mean, it does sound like Elway could stick around. Obviously, if the Broncos win the Super Bowl, you could see Elway right off into the sunset, kind of like he did the first time, kind of like Peyton Manning did. It's kind of the Bronco tradition almost at this point, if you're a great one. But there does seem to be some murmurs around there that Elway is starting to not be as hands-on and starting to just kind of prepare for life after his his general manager position for the Broncos. So again, that's murmurs. I haven't called up Elway and he hasn't told me that specifically, but it does seem like there's smoke in that regard.
Yeah, I think the conversation's always there. It's always been there whenever there have been failures with the Broncos. The past 3 seasons, either people have been calling for John Elway's job, which I'm just going to say is a lazy take, because if you call for someone's job, you better have somebody to replace them, at least 2 or 3 options. And if you don't say, I don't know, then you're getting rid of a guy for getting rid of a guy. And that guy is probably the best quarterback of all time, in my opinion. Now, Tom Brady might have more rings, but for me, it's always the Duke of Denver. That's not just looking at things with orange and blue. That's looking at his comeback records. That's looking at him inspiring guys to be better. That Peyton Manning effect, things like that. So I think that notion's always there, but I would caution Broncos country a little bit, because I can't wait to get out to training camp. I think July 28th is the day. I've been biting my fingernails waiting to get there ever since the NFL draft. And I can't wait to get there because I want to see what John's looking like. I want to see what he looks like on the field with this team, because last year I saw some smirks when Drew Lock's throwing. I saw him and Matt Russell, kind of giving each other a wink and a nod like, okay, there might be something there with this kid. I want to see John Elway, because you got to know that this youth movement that John Elway is putting together, it's going to inspire John Elway also. And I think it's going to rejuvenate number 7. And I think number 7 has tons up his sleeve. He's the Duke of Denver.
Yeah. And it's not imminent. I mean, this could be a 2023 thing we're talking about, but it does seem like they are grooming Matt Russell for a more leadership position where it's a possibility. I mean, we never really heard from Matt Russell before, and then all of a sudden he's getting one-on-ones with the Denver media. And I don't think that's by accident. So, and obviously there was not just the move there by Matt Russell, but also James Campbell coming in asking about some other moves that were made. Mark Thews to VP of Football Operations and Compliance, Darren Mugi to Assistant Director of College Scouting, Tony Lazaro to the Senior Director of Football Technology, Carl Schreiner to the Director of Football Information Systems, Scott Flaska to the Senior Manager of Football Analytics, Richard Hildenbrand to the Senior Software Engineer, and Emily Cooler to Data Scientist. So like you said earlier, Luke, you were talking about Vic Fangio might be an old guy, but new school because he trusts analytics, and being a statistician myself, I guess at the baseline of what I do as outside of this, I'm all about it. Analytics, obviously, games got to be played on the football field, but if you have data and you can get a leg up, and even just a slight leg up, because you're able to better analyze the data and find players or tendencies that you can lean on, that's the way to do it. I mean, that's the future of the NFL. Not like baseball where you have sabermetrics, but there's a lot of data there that still needs to be combed through and figured out how to best utilize it. And if you can use that and get just the slightest edge, that makes a difference.
I agree, absolutely. And I'm going to ask you this, Nick. Why do you chart plays?
Why do I chart plays? Just so I get a better idea of the trends. Just seeing exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
The NFL is all about trends, and Vic Fangio understands trends, and I'm right there with you with the analytics. Now, I'm going to say statistics can be manipulated either way of the argument that you want. But for me, just like you said it, if the film matches with the analytics, then you've got trends, you've got revelations, you're starting to figure things out. You can manipulate the field and manipulate the game. This is something that Vic Fangio knows. Now, while analytics and stuff like that, they've definitely become more advanced, statistics and things like that and trends, that's been around for a long time. So when you get an old school coach that's saying, yes, I want the analytics, give me all the resources I need, and I will give you a football team, I'm excited to see what we can do. And, I think it's also something, accreditation to the Broncos taking care of their own. I wonder how many of these folks, not only received promotions, but were brought up from within the organization. We talk about Matt Russell receiving this VP promotion, but the Broncos make it a priority to take care of their own. That's something that Pat Bowlen set years and years ago, and I think it still stands true with Patrick Smythe and Eric Schubert and everything the guys are doing over there at Broncos PR and Joe Ellis and Broncos brass. They're taking care of these staff members that have definitely been taking care of them and this team during this current time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Darian P. coming in. Am I the only one who noticed Nick has mentioned Iowa and geeked out about their schemes? I love the Iowa defensive scheme. They're running that 4-2-5 now. They run that cash position. But Iowa offense, I can be a little hit or miss. They will run. Unfortunately, I'm going to be frustrated with Pat Shurmur a little bit, I believe, if his trends hold up. But Iowa will run the outside zone stretch to the short side of the field every time. Like it's like 50. If you flip a coin, 50% of the time, they're going to run the outside zone stretch to the short side of the field. And teams know that too. So that can be a little frustrating. We might see that with Pat Shurmur in the inside zone this season. I'm going back, talking with some Giants fans and people who cover the team, that inside zone sometimes got a little predictable. We'll see if that changes now that he's the offensive coordinator. But it will be interesting to follow that. Terry Randall coming in again. Luke, I am not your father. # Raiders suck. Nothing to disagree.
I love it, Terry. I cannot stand the Raiders at all. I've said my entire life, if you tell me you're a Raiders fan, that tells me a lot about you really, really quick. So, no, I appreciate the love, Terry. That being said, the Broncos need to show some respect to the silver and black because I don't think they're a joke. I don't think they're the Los Angeles Chargers, but the silver and black's definitely going to make a run. I think the FC West is stacked this year with talent. Now, whether or not that talent computes into football players and winning football remains to be seen. But, yeah, when it comes to the Raiders, that's one of my favorite games. I'm so happy they're in Las Vegas because I'm waiting to see Broncos country fill that stadium with orange when the time comes.
Absolutely. So how does this exactly fit here? There's a good question coming in from Matt Morrissey over on YouTube. Peyton fits the front office as well. Where can he fit? Am I taking crazy pills? That's probably, if this team is sold, it's outside of the Bolin family. Peyton Manning becomes the figurehead. Obviously, he doesn't have enough money to buy the Broncos by himself, but there's could be an investment team. He could be a part of it and obviously get a big role in the front office and crafting the team. I mean, Peyton could pretty much do a lot of things. He could sit on his butt and analyze football games, making millions of dollars a year. Who else is really going to challenge him for being better than that? Maybe Tony Romo, but that's about it. But it does seem like there's some smoke there for Peyton Manning potentially making a move there. So it's worth watching. That's all I'm saying. I mean, we can dream on it. It would be an incredible storyline, but it's worth watching and at least hoping on right now if you're hoping for that stability and maybe having a guy like Peyton Manning in charge.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, Matt. Absolutely. And I guess the answer to that question, where does Peyton Manning fit? Wherever Peyton Manning wants to fit. Peyton Manning does what he wants, and he does it very well. So I think wherever you see Peyton Manning land, he's going to have success. It may not be right away, but, all good things, they take time. Now, Patrick Mahomes, that's a little bit of a stretch. I think the Chiefs hit a lottery. I don't know if they sold their soul to get Patrick Mahomes. They definitely gave up some draft picks, but it's looking okay for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. As we have another quick super chat I wanted to get to. I'm trying to pull it up on the screen here, Nick. Maybe you can help me. This one's coming in from my friend Shay Dolan. Thoughts on the Broncos' ability to pass block to allow Locke time to get off the ball. Man, this is a tough one, Nick. We both thought the Broncos were going to invest in offensive tackles early in the draft. And when I say early, the premier rounds 1 through 3. The Broncos did not go offensive tackle at all.
Yep.
What do you think about the current situation of the Broncos offensive line? Because I think we all feel very comfortable about Lloyd Cushenberry, Dalton Reisner, and Graham Glasgow. Your tackles, what do you think, Nick?
If Juwan James can be healthy and play, the Broncos offensive line can be a solid B. To a B plus even, I think, with that interior trio. Now, that being said, if you're depending on Juwan James, that's a recipe for disaster given his history. But when he was out there last year, the Broncos offense looked as good as they did all season. He's a different cat. I mean, he's got the length, the movement skills. He's really good. He's younger than Garrett Bowles, despite already being on the second year of his second contract. So actually, it might be his birthday today. He's only like a week younger than Garrett Bowles. So it's
and Garrett just had a birthday the other day too. So
Juwan James is coming right up. Okay. But the tackle's still an issue. It was still going to be an issue. The Broncos offense, or I guess roster in general, was at a point where they're obviously trending in the right direction, but they weren't going to fix everything right away. So once the big 4 tackles went off the board by 15, and obviously the NFL did not like Ezra Cleveland / Josh Jones as much as the media did, because those guys slipped. Yep. I think that the Broncos decided, you know what, offensive tackle is an important position. Bowles is serviceable for a year. We have this investment in Juwan James. We like Elijah Wilkinson. We need to get this speed on the offense. And so they went with KJ Hamler. After that, I mean, you're probably not getting a guy that's challenging either Bowles or James in the mid to end third round. So that's the direction that they went. We'll see if it's good in the end. But the fact that, I mean, Vic Fangio sounded like he was the one who was pounding the table the hardest for KJ Hamler. So I know a lot of people wanted Josh Jones. A lot of people wanted Ezra Miller, but Fangio wanted KJ Hamler because what that speed can do to dictate defenses, dictate coverages, make it easier on the quarterback. So is the pass blocking the biggest concern on offense? Outside of whether or not Drew Lock can be the franchise guy, yes, it comes down to the offensive tackles. But again, they weren't going to have a perfect roster entering the season no matter what. So if tackle's the thing that's the issue coming in this season, guess what? Go back to the drawing board next offseason. David Bakhtiari, Andre Villanueva, Nate Soldier, all guys that could be free agents. Go to the draft. There's going to be some good offensive tackles in the draft. I'm already looking at this class. It looks pretty good. So obviously it's a worry this year, but I don't think you weren't going to have no worries this season.
You ain't got to have no worries. Well, the Broncos have some worries, and they've got some worries at the left tackle position. And, Nick, one of the biggest things, hearing Elijah Wilkinson talk this week to one of my best friends, Cecil Lammy and Nick Ferguson on 104.3 The Fan, and he kind of took a shot at Bowles. Now, I don't know. I don't have the quote directly. Maybe you can find that for me or just help me figure it out. But it was kind of like, well, I'm really looking forward to competing at the left tackle position because some people think I can do it better than others. And that was very directed at Garrett Bowles. Now, Elijah Wilkinson, he's been playing every position but center basically since he's been here. So I'm excited to see what the big cat has. This is a prove-it year for Elijah Wilkinson. It's a lot like Billy Turner kind of freakishly got paid by the Green Bay Packers when he came in and saw a lot of starting time. And I don't know that they necessarily got their money's worth with Billy Turner, but when I hear a big man talk a big game and there's some struggles with Garrett Bowles, and Garrett Bowles, he's got the athletic ability. He's got it. It's the coach ability. That's all it is with Garrett. And I know I'm trying to minimize the situation. And the Broncos have Mike Munchak, Hall of Fame player, great coach. But at some point, you have to figure out whether or not you have a football player or you have an athlete. I think Elijah Wilkinson could very well be giving Garrett Bowles a serious run for his money at the starting left tackle position by the end of training camp.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good call. I'm wait and see. As always, we'll see what happens. Question here. Obviously, we got about 10 minutes left, guys. Lee, Nick, you're really able to give your best analysis under the influence. I love beer too, but just wondering. I only bring one in here, so I'm not going to be under the influence. I enjoy the taste of just one. So Chris Hernandez.
Nick's drinking, no. Nick drinks Iowa beer. Here in Denver, we have got tons of microbrews. I have water with me, but no, Iowa beer, you don't got to worry. It's mostly water.
And that's also Frank Sinatra life. One drink, one water.
There we go. All right, we got Mr. Chris Hernandez. Chris, thank you very much for your support. Just wanted to pop in and show some love. Can't stay. Family dinner time. Cheers. So, Chris, I love it. And one of the biggest reasons why football brings people together, but it brings family together too. So I appreciate that you check in with us, but I also appreciate that you prioritize your family, because as we start to wrap this show up, family's so important. And it's something Nick and I were talking a little bit about right before the show, just to take the viewers behind the scenes. We're always going to be telling you guys the truth. Now, we might bicker and banter, but it's never through orange and blue glasses. It's strictly through an analytical view. And sometimes you're not going to like what we hear. Other times you're going to love what we hear. But you know what? I appreciate the support on our very first episode. And it's so important that we take care of each other and take care of our families during this time. So thank you very much, Chris. We really appreciate it, buddy.
And here's a really good question from Manny Weiss. This is a topic that I haven't thought about yet so much, but great question. Is there a Bronco you guys see regressing this season? If so, then who? So, gosh, anybody who kind of was an outlier last year, maybe played above their game, that might regress a little bit. I mean, the easy one would be to say Phillip Lindsay, just because they paid Melvin Gordon. The touches aren't going to be there. I'm going to go one. I won't go the easy route. I'm going to go with a crazy one. Maybe Alexander Johnson. I know that people are really excited about him, but going back, he brought a lot of energy. There's some good play there, but he's not like the youngest guy. I think he's going to be 28 or 29 this season. So while he's still relatively young for football because he didn't play those seasons, he is not a young player by any means. And also last year, I felt like Alexander Johnson, obviously, he's got some good instincts. He's a big guy, but they took him off the field and kept Todd Davis on the field in obvious pass downs. So I'm curious to see Alexander Johnson play great last season, one of the best players according to Pro Football Focus, but it's just 1 year sample size. He's not the best player in space in regards to coverage. I feel like maybe he'll regress a little bit compared to how good he was last year, just because there are coverage questions there for me.
Absolutely. And I'll double down with you and talk about the outlaw Josie Jewell. And, I know you probably don't like that, Mr. Iowa and all, but Josie Jewell has been a player I was so excited when they drafted him. And his lack of coverage just really seems to hurt him. I don't want to give up on Josie Jewell yet. I really don't. But I need to see something, because a lot like Alexander Johnson, and look, Broncos country, I get it. Alexander Johnson, he's cool. He's fiery. He's got the T-Rex dance. It's awesome, right? But ultimately it's about who's going to cover Travis Kelce, who's going to cover Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying a linebacker needs to do it every time. You can mix things up. K-Jack is certainly in the conversation for looking at Kelce and things like that. So, yeah, man, I think that's one of those things where the linebackers are definitely – Todd Davis, he's been a tackling machine for the Denver Broncos, but he's kind of just another guy. And I mean that with all due respect, because Todd Davis has been a very consistent piece. I was down when he went out at training camp. Day one, he goes down and Broncos country's freaking out. What are we going to do about an already, non-existent linebacking core that's very young? Man, this linebacker core, they either need to step it up. Otherwise, they're going to be out of here, man. And the Broncos are going to be shopping and trading and wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, that week one linebacking duo of Corey Nelson and Josie Jewell, sends a shiver down my spine. That was
Corey Nelson's second stint with the Broncos, right?
Yeah, yes. He was on there, kind of a special teams kind of guy, but never really a starter. And I think it was with Tampa Bay, and he just really did not look good. There was obviously some reshuffling between week 1 to week 5 that really made the Broncos defense solidify in that front seven. But that linebacking duo of Josie Jewell, no offense. I mean, obviously, Josie Jewell from Decorah, Iowa, he's a solid player in regards to the leadership he brought. But
great
on the
guy.
Field, you can be slow and you can be small. But if you're slow and small, I'm nervous. The bigger, faster guys tend to. Doesn't mean they're going to be great, but they tend to be better. So, boss man coming in here, Chad Jensen. Don't have a hat on, but hats off to you, sir. Here's to the launch of another great MHH podcast. Congrats, fellas. Thank you very much, boss man. We appreciate that tremendously. Obviously, thank you for the platform, getting a chance to do this. Obviously, we have some more super chats here as well. Obviously, the chat sometimes, guy, they kind of get a little crazy. So hopefully, Buana, if you're on there, hopefully we can, if there's any I missed, let me know. Sending a little love, but got to run from Dave Darlington, $2. Appreciate you a lot, Dave, and just coming by and saying hi.
Dave.
And from Buana right here, the shirt from huddleuppod.com are cozy. Make sure you guys check those out. I'm not wearing my Building the Broncos hat right now. But did you see Lance wearing the Building the Broncos merch? I did not, but good for Lance. See, he knows which one's the best pod. Well, we'll see. I don't want to – obviously, Mile High insiders are coming along. But,
we're coming. Yeah. I'm coming for your second show and all the other shows. But no, that's the best thing about the Huddle Up podcast, the Mile High Huddle community, all of the staff writers on milehighhuddle.com and Sports Illustrated. We work feverishly, folks, and all these guys, and I know Nick included, we're happy to be here on Saturday night. This is by no means a chore for us. We are excited to ride with you. I can't wait for the season. I know we've got some heated debates coming, and we've got a lot of things to talk about. And here we are, just wrapping some things up on the first edition of Mile High Insiders. And stay tuned. We will have some merch coming out soon. But like Nick said, be sure to get over to huddleuppod.com. Go ahead and grab, I think they've got hoodies, T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs. So go ahead and rep that swag.
Absolutely. That's a great call. And I saw that right here, Bill1293. I don't know how much of a college guy you are, Luke, but if you get a chance to watch some Micah Parsons over at Penn State, the Broncos will probably not be picking in any range to select him, but just a very impressive player, probably one of the better linebackers since Roquan Smith coming out.
Wow.
So
he's going to be on Coach Fangio's radar then.
Yeah, I think the issue is if the Broncos are in range to pick Micah Parsons, it probably means that Drew Lock flamed out, and that probably means the Broncos are searching for a quarterback because we're talking about a top 8 pick.
How dare you?
I operate in the realm of where anything is possible. So,
no, man, I think Broncos country has a lot to be optimistic about and a lot to be excited about. But I think, you wrote a great article. I think it was either this week or last week about trying to figure out tempering those expectations a little bit. And, Mark Schlereth says something that I think we both respect a lot when he says, don't become the Cleveland Browns just because you've got a few new toys and a flashy quarterback. And I think the Broncos, they're a much better organization than the Cleveland Browns, but I think Drew Lock, he can stay humble. He can lead this team, and I'm looking forward to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, and we got a great comment coming in here from Jabbar Sins. 2 of the more knowledgeable and charismatic hosts. Should be a fun pod. Looking forward to some debates. We thank you guys very much. We do appreciate that tremendously, and thanks for writing us today. Honestly, guys, our time's already up. Time flies by. Make sure you go over to huddleuppod.com. Go get your swag on. Hopefully we'll have some swag from this show coming up very soon. Luke, before we get out of here, how are you feeling? First show over. Anything you want to, I guess, obviously we've made it Broncos football this time, but anything you want to leave our guests about, anything about you, your football journey, what you're looking forward to this season, anything. This is your chance.
Yeah. So I'm a Colorado native, guys. I was born and raised here in Denver, Colorado. I have a house with my wife and my daughter and my 2 dogs. I played for Dave Logan at Mullen, so the Broncos have always been very, very important to me. It started with my family, my mom and dad. So watching football with them, I still call my dad after every game. So I'm our boots on the ground here in Denver. Our staff are one of the best sayings about Mile High Huddle is it's not a geographical location, it's a state of being. And that's Broncos country. And we've got Broncos country over the entire world. Before the show, we were talking a little bit about Broncos Europe and the huge outreach of fans that Broncos Europe has reaching out to Mile High Huddle. So, I'm a local here in Denver. I love to hunt, fish, be outside anytime we can, enjoy time with my family. But, dude, I want to get done with these Zoom press conferences. I'm tired of being on them. I want to be out at the facility. I want to be at rookie OTAs, mini camp. I want to be at all that stuff because I'm itching to get there. So I will be at most of the press conferences this year, assuming everything goes well with the current state of the world. So yeah, that's kind of it for me in a nutshell. I have some word salad, so you guys will have to bear with some of my rants here and there, but I am really pumped to get things going and really respect all the work that Nick does. Nick's been putting in a lot of work with all of his partners, past and previous, and Carl and building the Broncos and everything like that. So I definitely want to give them some love, and Chad Jensen, Zach Kelberman, and a good neighbor of mine, Adam Fry, who designed our logo. So I want to give Adam some quick love. But that's me in a nutshell. Football junkie. I can't get enough.
And I'm going to be a little nerd real quick. Shout out to my cat who's in the animal hospital over the next few nights, has some crystals, wasn't doing so hot. So his name is Queso, and we don't have any kids. My wife and I don't have any kids. We don't have any other pets. It's just the cat. So we're a little bit heartbroken right now, but hopefully he will be back and healthy. And once he's back in our house, I'll send a tweet out because he's literally the cutest cat I've ever seen in my life. I'm biased, but I can't even help it. And thank you, Shabona Dolan here. You're a friend of yours, I believe. Awesome show. Can't wait for next week. Hashtag Raiders suck. So
the Raiders suck. Shay, Shay's going to be one of our fast super chat stars coming to the Mount Rushmore. I can assure you of that. One of the biggest Broncos fans I've ever met in my life. So Shay, I appreciate it. And yeah, Nick, thoughts and prayers for you and your family, man. It's kind of something I tried to echo early on. We got to take care of each other during this really hard time. And whether that's chatting with a friend or turning on some Broncos tape, y'all should definitely be smiling and be happy because Broncos country, the losing days are coming to an end. They're over. I am convinced this team is on the rise, and we should have plenty of more to talk about on Saturday nights, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Would that be 8 p.m. your time, Nick? 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. So
you can ask Eric. I am the worst with time zones. I think everything should just be the same time zone. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, but we got to get out of here, guys. You can follow Luke on Twitter at Luke Patterson LP and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and, of course, Sports Illustrated. Guys, go on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you our Denver Bronco deep dives. Make sure you subscribe to our channel here, Mile High Huddle. I mean, that really does a lot for us. Make sure you leave comments, share it out. We really do appreciate it. Leave a like if you're on YouTube, wherever you are. I mean, if you like the show, let us. If you didn't like the show, let us know. Get to us on Twitter. We love the feedback. I love interacting with you guys. My wife will say, hey, you're always on your phone. Guys, I'm addicted to Broncos country. I just want to talk with you guys. Follow the show and all our other great audio content by subscribing to Huddle Podcast wherever you listen to these shows. You can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. And for Luke, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode, or our first episode, excuse me. It's just autopilot there.
We're making history, baby.
Insiders. Yep, first of many. Obviously, we will hopefully get here, and hopefully the chemistry's good. I mean, it was pretty natural, good flow. Again, leave us any comments. We really appreciate it, guys. But until then, I like to leave it like I like to leave building the Broncos. Go Broncos.